There's a sentence which scientists love, especially if they are in the health field. This sentence is, "There is no evidence that." As a patient, when your medical doctor, your physio, your therapist, whomever, tells you there is no evidence that, you feel alone, you feel stupid, and you feel that nobody understands you. There is no evidence that actually means that science has not been able to demonstrate that, blah, blah. What I'd like to show you is that science has limitations and that you should not be impressed when someone tells you about this. The last 24 hours have given me two great examples of why science is limited in its way to think through issues, daily life issues. And I'd like to decompose that with you so that you understand why you should not feel stupid, helpless, and alone. I will criticize a scientific approach, but I am a scientist. I'm a mechanical engineer. I have a scientific education in health. I lecture in academic settings. I have had a managerial position in a university institute. I did publish, I did coach PhD students, I do participate in scientific conferences. So I am a scientist, but still I want to show you the limits of scientific thinking so that you're not impressed when people tell you that it is not scientifically proven. I have posted a picture of a kneeling chair showing that the back is hollow and that this is not healthy. On LinkedIn, I got a reply from a professor. Let me read. Have a look in Google Scholar about these kneeling chairs. Scientific papers seem to demonstrate better spinal curvature and lower trunk muscle activities. Unable to find a study with negative results, ? Where does your conclusion come from? ? As the author of the picture, I mean, of course, at first you feel like, well, this guy is telling me, who am I to talk about kneeling chairs? And what you actually see in this answer is that there are three things that he does not do and that most scientists, especially when they work in a lab, will not do. Number one, he does not go to the field. So he doesn't know what this chair does to people. He has never seen it in reality. Number two, he doesn't feel for himself. He doesn't try to sit on the chair to see what it does. Number three, he doesn't do a biomechanical analysis, which is science. Physics and mechanics are science. What he will tell you is that, yeah, but if I sit on the chair, it's just me. It's not randomized controlled trial. It's not objective and things. So, I mean, let's try and analyze if science is really that objective. But already at this stage, you see that scientists do not have this common sense approach, which is to see for themselves what it does and draw hypotheses from that. They run to their scientific databases. Later in the same day, I got a mail from a very respected and very respectful colleague who is a professor in physiotherapy. I'm not going to cite names neither for one nor for the other, because we are not here to blame individuals. I'm here to show you, trends and ways to think that are shared by more than one or two people. Therefore, names makes no sense. This colleague of mine sends me a slide which he uses as the evidence-based summary of what should be known for office workers. There are 5 bullet points. The first points are about you should keep your wrist straight when you use your mouse. Indeed, this makes sense because, when you flex your wrist like this, you increase the risk of tendinitis, plus when it goes like this, you increase the pressure in the carpal tunnel, as well as here again, the muscle strain. So the first 4 points make perfect sense. Now look at the 5th bullet point. The 5th bullet point says, rest your forearm on the desk surface as much as possible. And here everybody applauds because, yeah, this is a very good summary of what literature says. But nobody says there's a contradiction between the 4 first bullet points and the 5th bullet point. Just see for yourself, the more I rest my forearms on the desk surface, the less I'm able to move my elbows, and therefore the more my wrist will be deviated and possibly even in extension. So resting your forearms on your desk is contradictory with having your wrist straight. So tell me, if science would be that objective that you need to run to your scientific database rather than to your proprioception or to your field experience and things, would science be contradictory like you've just seen? No, it would not be contradictory. And actually, let's go back to this forearm story. What's the problem with the forearm? Thing is, the upper trapezius holds your arms from above, and indeed every office worker will know that he has neck strain or she has neck strain because the upper trapezius is tense. So our goal in occupational health is very often, how can we relieve the trapezius? Okay, fine, it's a fair goal. But science always compares a number of scenarios. It imagines a number of things. Let's have the forearms in the air. Let's have the forearms on the desk. It puts people in the lab, usually for 15 to 30 minutes, and it sees the impact. Since when is a lab setting, and since when is 15-30 minutes relevant for what happens in an office setting for 8 hours a day, 5 days a week? And further, these different scenarios do not envisage some other scenarios, which are, for example, hey, should we teach people how to use their latissimus dorsi? Look at the latissimus dorsi. The latissimus dorsi is a muscle that attaches just under your humerus and to the whole lower half of the mid-back, the lower back and the pelvis. So you see, the latissimus dorsi is here as a column, as a pillar for the weight of your arms. It is an arm support, but just it is an internal arm support that will be in action depending on your posture. You see, if I'm there with my trunk, say, stable, I do have the latissimus present. I feel here under my armpits that there's someone. As soon as I go there, there's no more latissimus dorsi. So to activate the latissimus dorsi, which is a much healthier way of getting arm support than leaning on the desk, you need to have a global approach, educate people, because as the latissimus dorsi goes to your pelvis, well, definitely its ability to function will be depending on what you do with your pelvis. But to study that, science would need to look at an infinite number of scenarios, including this one, and, well, it cannot do that. It would need to look at more than 15 to 30 minutes. It would need to look at the drawbacks of what people of these type of recommendations in a real life office setting, and it would need to have a global approach to say, well, actually what happens in the upper trapezius depends on what happens in the pelvis, because if I don't have proper pelvis control, then I will not have proper latissimus dorsi activation, and therefore I will not have my arms supported. And I'm not the only one saying that. Actually, we have studied that in the Netherlands, where I was coaching a PhD student in rehabilitation medicine, and we have seen then in proper postures the fact that we use the latissimus dorsi allows you to relax the neck. But that takes clients' education. It's not about observing how people do. It's about training them in doing different things than they would naturally do. So this is to tell you that you should not feel small or stupid compared to scientists. Scientists have also a narrow vision of the world because they know what is in their lab and in their databases, but there are many flaws to the way this research is conducted and published. And therefore what happens in a lab is just a distorted vision of what happens in the reality, and the reality is much more complex to capture because of the multifactorial aspects of reality and because of the continuous aspects of reality. And multifactors plus continuity are two things that science does not know how to measure. Of course, scientists don't like to communicate about the limits of their methods, but you need to be aware of these limits so that you don't feel small and stupid.